lack of understanding the need for really great leadership in our churches. But as I look across the plain, I look at congregations all over the country, and not just churches of Christ, but as churches just in general. Invariably, the churches that have the greatest leadership will have the greatest ministries, and they're the churches that will have the people that love the Lord the most. There'll be churches that are growing. And again, I'm not talking about the leadership style that is the leadership style of this world, okay? We may get more time to talk about that in here during this hour. This world is filled up with all kinds of leadership models that are wrong. And when you get right down to it, really leadership itself falls into one of two categories. Go ahead and you pull that close down if you like. Leadership falls into one of two categories. There's the old power-driven type of leadership. It's been around since the world was begun, where there's a boss pressing somebody to do what they want them to do. Whether and its worst form, really, that was slavery when you get right down to it. But today we have lots of companies that are run by people that are tyrannical, that are overbearing, that are, in many cases today, it's not so much overt as it is covert even. Back in my day growing up, there were a lot of overt ogres. Today we have a lot of covert ogres. These are the people who kind of pull the strings and kind of do dirty deals behind people's backs. But it goes on everywhere. Now that's not the kind of leadership that we're talking about in here at all. That's the power-driven leadership model. The other model of leadership, which is the Christian model, and I would submit is the only model that works long-term in any organization, is the mentoring model. Mentoring is a form of leadership that comes up alongside someone else, and they show, but they never ever shove. That's the big difference. And so we're talking about some concepts here. I told you as we started, we've got a total of 24 if we get to them today. If we don't, that's okay too. We've talked about the first 8 of those. And right now we're going to step into the 9th. This is where I'm going to encourage you to take what I call the BO approach. Now, I know what you're thinking. It ain't that kind of BO. Come here. Now, I'm talking about this kind of BO. BO for me means a benefit-oriented approach to everything. Great businesses that brand themselves and do it correctly always brand themselves with a benefit to their audience. Okay? Now, it may not be a godly benefit, but it's the perceived need that the hearer, the experiencer of that product is looking for. Okay? And that is our key. That's what we're called to do as Christians. We need to be benefit-oriented individuals. And here's what I believe. I believe that the more like Jesus we are, and by the way, Jesus was totally into benefits. The more like Jesus we are, the more we're going to draw people to Christ. I don't do a great job at this. Actually, Bonnie, we need to remember, I've got to text the young lady that cut my hair the other day. The other day, I did something right. And again, I could fill the room with things I've done wrong. But I'd gone to get my hair cut, and this young lady was cutting my hair. I didn't really know her. We got to talking some, and just really leaked up. And I began helping her with a few things that she was struggling with. Gave me a perfect opportunity to mention church to her. And so I got her number and information. And so I'm texting her right now. She asked me to. It's fine. I had our son, who is our minister, our preacher at church, contact her in hopes that she's going to be there tomorrow. Or I guess Sunday. What is this? This is Friday. It'll be day after tomorrow. But the thing is, the reason that worked, the reason that she was even interested in thinking about church, was because I first stepped into her world with a benefit. And I shared something with her that helped her a little bit. And that's the only way people tick. I mean, you're not going to win very many people if you're not a benefit-oriented person. And like I started to say a moment ago, great advertisers, boy, they get this. This behind me is a billboard that is terrible. I can't overstate that word. It is terrible. You will know that I have tried to hide all the identities because I don't want to embarrass anybody here. But this billboard sits on an interstate somewhere in these United States. And this is one of the worst billboards that has ever been hatched. I mean, take a look at it. We've got this doctor here, right? And we got his 3 assistants. We got his name up here. We got a list of things that he does, a phone number. I don't know if this is another company or one that he owns or what, but over here there's this big old logo, pictures of this, another phone number. They're open on Saturdays. You'll be glad to know that. They've got this list here, and along the bottom it's got a locator line where they're at. Boy, this doctor has everything on here but the family pool. And you know what? People driving down the road at 70 miles an hour, fighting with their spouse, worried about their kids, scared about losing their jobs. Do you think they even see that thing? No, because he's bragging about himself. it doesn't really speak benefit in a way that people can hear it. It's clutter. But on the other hand, when a really great company comes out with a really great new product, they present it in a very benefit-oriented way. Several years ago, Coca-Cola came along with a new product. They told us it tasted just like classic Coke, but it had 0 calories. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Coke Zero. Yeah, there you go, Coke Zero, absolutely. And when they advertised that product, they advertised it in a benefit-oriented way. Here are the benefits. The benefit, of course, is it tastes like Coke, no calories. This is one of the original billboards that they launched with. Tastes so much like Coke, we should sue ourselves. 9 words, pretty simple, kind of funny. But look at what you really see here. You see 2 things. You see this promise, like Coke, and you see what I'm sure is a Photoshop can with 1 word popping out over all the other words on it. What's that word? Zero. Like Coke, 0 calories. And you know what? That became one of the most successful product launches of the decade. This is what I'm talking about. Look for the way to bring benefit to somebody else. Don't be so worried about putting a notch in your belt. It's just simply about bringing benefits. Come on in here, guys. No, you're welcome. We have a couple of seats left today. But this is the way that Christians need to live. And here's the thing. I'm frankly sick and tired of watching the devil's kids do it all right and us do it all wrong most of the time. You know what I mean? I mean, why don't we wake up? And why don't we start thinking, hey, there are some cool, new things that we can do differently that will change things forever for the better. That to me is the bottom line. Let me share with you now 3 key skills, because I'm giving you some principles, some things that we have to work on. But let me give you 3 principles, because a lot of times what we do is we think back to the past, and we think about past failures. And let me just tell you, that is the devil's domain. This is where the devil lives. And the devil wants you spinning your wheels, worrying about the past, rethinking, replaying, and not accepting the forgiveness that I trust you've already prayed and received. Okay? So as we go forward, just remember, there comes a time to get past your past. Because you can't minister, you can't effectively reach people if you don't. Here are those 3 things. Number 1, remember that past dumb does not have to equal future dumb. Whatever you've done in the past, okay, it's in the past. If it wasn't a good thing to do, then don't do it anymore. Learn from your mistakes and go forward. Number 2, remember this. It is never too late to begin doing the right thing. Again, whatever's gone on before, it's never too late to begin doing the right stuff. And number 3, the only job you've got, and this really simplifies things, this has brought clarity to my life in a profound way. The only job that you have is to make the next right decision. That's all you have to do. So whatever's gone on before, that's the devil's territory. Forget about it. I mean, obviously. I mean, if you stole somebody's TV last night at the motel, bring it back before you check out. Okay? I'm not saying, but on the other side, don't carry things. Don't carry things, because it just kills you. It ruins you. And this brings me to the next thing I want to share with you. It's what I call the message versus the method. Now, again, another one of those phrases that doesn't make a lot of sense maybe initially, but I hope to make some sense from it. Here's the thing. A lot of ministries fail because we get so focused on the method that the message doesn't ever get communicated. And again, how does this boil down? How does it shake out? You've got to understand, as I said earlier, that sociologists are telling us that while it used to take about 24 years for there to be broad societal change in the way people thought, that broad societal change is now happening every 6 to 8 years. It's happening fast. And here's a fact. Whatever you were doing in your church 6 or 8 years ago that was working, ain't working today. Okay? Why? It's because those people you were able to talk to 6 or 8 years ago have now moved down that continuum. And they're down here. But you're still talking over here to a blank wall. And we have to understand this. And again, please understand, I'm probably as conservative, if not more so, than anybody else in this room. But I like to define that word a little differently. I don't define conservative as how traditional I am. or not traditional. That's not the point. What I define as conservative is whether I am following 2,000-year-old Orthodox Christian teaching.
Amen.
That's it.
Amen.
And knowing Jesus. That's the bottom line. That's everything. That's the whole thing. And frankly, I don't care how we get the information to other people. And sometimes people jump up and say, oh, I don't want to entertain people. That's not what we're here. Well, yeah, I agree. We're not here to put on a show. But on the other hand, you think about it, God was a bit of a showman. I mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but think back to the day of Pentecost. How did he rally all the people in Jerusalem together? Wasn't there that huge, mighty, blowing wind that drove everybody down to where these 11 apostles, or by that time, 12 apostles were? I mean, seriously. So what's wrong with reaching people any way we need to? Jesus fed people. I mean, yeah, and Jesus performed miracles, not just to make those individuals healthy and wealthy and wise. Okay? That was a big part of it. But he did that as a sign to other people. And in that case, it was I'm not trying to minimize things, but it was a show. It was something for people to see, to grasp, to get their arms around. You remember after he rose Lazarus, good night. I mean, the Jews were just laying in wait because everybody in town for weeks was just in an uproar, totally blown away by this. People were leaving the Jewish Sanhedrin and becoming Christians, some of them. See, there's nothing wrong with doing things differently to reach people, provided we don't change the message. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Back in 1934, American Airlines was born. That was their very first logo. It was a big red, white, and blue all-American logo with the two big A's and with that American eagle right in the middle. And that worked for a while. But as their audience matured, they had to change. So in 45, this is what they came out with. Again, it's the same message, the two big A's, the American eagle, just more stylized, right? And then in 1962, they updated it again. Same exact message, just a different method of communicating. And then in 1968, when we had that real, modern feel about everything, this is what they came out with. And then a few years ago, this is what they've come out with. And still to this very day, from this one all the way back to this one, they're still promoting those two big A's and this big old eagle flying into the distance. They have never, in over 80 years, they have never once changed their message. What they've done is they've changed their methodology. And Christians, a lot of times we refuse to do this, either because we confuse the two, or, forgive me for saying this, sometimes we're just too lazy. And it's easier to criticize than it is to be creative. Wow. So we have to think a little differently as we do these things. It's important. Number 12, I want to encourage you to aggressively, actively, proactively even, turn your disabilities into your assets. I love this girl. I don't even know who she is, but I am in love with her. I mean, look at this woman. Look at the determination in her face. Look at the strength in her arms. And you'll notice something. Her wheel is ahead of everybody else's. That chick has a lot on the ball. But that woman has a terrible disability, doesn't she? I love that woman. That's the woman I want to be in a foxhole with. Because she's tough. And she's not going to let anything that's gone wrong in the past slow her down. Matter of fact, I would submit to you that she's better because of that disability. Because she's had to overcome that to get to ground level. You know what I mean? I love people like this. Now here's the deal. Every one of us in this room, you have disabilities, I have disabilities. Probably not as profound as this young man. But some of us aren't as smart as we wish we were. Some of us aren't as good looking. Some of us are not as articulate. Some of us don't have the temperament we wish we had. Some of us have all kinds of things going on. And there are probably in a room this size, a number of you in here dealing with serious health problems. I told those that were with us in the first hour, in 1992, I was 39 years old when I was taken to the hospital and had 5 heart bypasses. That has radically changed everything. I mean, I'm 65 now. They gave me 1 to 2 years to live. But I'm now 65, going and blowing. Bonnie and I, how many flights did we have last year? 120 something like that. We're flying all the time. I go to the gym 3 days a week. I run 5 miles. I could not feel better. God is good. But here's the thing. We all have disabilities. And I take a fistful of medications every night. Poor Bonnie, she has, this is a woman of strength. I have to have the room down around 60 degrees. It's like a meat locker in there. Gee, talking about somebody's persecuted for righteousness' sake. But I mean, here's the deal. Here's the deal. We all have disabilities. Matter of fact, let me tell you about another disability I have.
Who would guess?
Who would guess? Who would guess? I love this guy. But seriously, I have ADHD. I didn't even know it officially until, 4 years, 5 years ago, something very recently. It explained a whole bunch of things. They always told me I was a very active child. But you see, the thing is, these days, if I were coming along, they'd be trying to shoot me up with Ritalin and messing with me and telling me that I had a disability and all that carrying on. And think about what that does to kids. And again, I'm not saying you don't medicate children sometimes, but I think it's way, 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 way overdone. I mean, good night alive. That tells the kid that they've got a disadvantage. So they start thinking that way. How horrible. And a lot of it's because lazy parents don't want to parent. I mean, just drug a kid. And again, I'm off on a different thing. I apologize.
That's ADHD.
But yes, the ADHD. But, you know, I'm very happy that I'm not, because ADHD has helped me so much in this world. It has helped me do more, have more enthusiasm, more excitement. I'm able to see things that could be, and I go for those all the time. I mean, I don't give up. And frankly, I don't get embarrassed. Somebody was teasing about this earlier. Somebody said, have you ever gone into a restroom with your microphone on? The answer is yeah, a number of times. And it is hard to come out for that next session. I mean, I've done this. I don't get embarrassed. But the thing is, the ADHD has really worked for me. And I would submit that maybe that young lady's disability has worked for her. Your disability can be make it work for you. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Use it to get energized and go forward. Number 13, let's become dedicated to ferocious forgiveness. This is what runs a lot of us. We get a burr under our saddle about something. And we get up, some of you guys are preachers, you get up on Sunday mornings and tell other people they're not supposed to do this, and we do it. And we don't forgive, and it is a poison that we're administering to ourselves, I should say, to ourselves on a routine daily basis. And then we wonder why we feel that. We wonder why we're bummed out, why we don't really like people like we should. I don't know if any of you guys recognize this fellow. This is Joy Spann. He's a friend of mine. Joy is the preacher at the Burnett Chapel Church of Christ in Nashville. And he was the fellow that was in the pulpit preaching the morning the gunman broke in September and shot the place up, shot Joy, shot off one of his fingers and shot him in the chest. Pardon me. I should never let that happen. Listen, my policy usually is turn this thing off. I'm sorry. But anyways, they didn't know whether Joy was going to live. It was really not a good situation at all. But I had a moment to visit with Joy recently. I asked him, I said, Joy, what are you hearing the most? And he says, Steve, the thing I'm hearing the most, people are saying, Joy, have you been able to forgive those people? And he says, yes, I forgive them. And he says, then the next question is, how in the world could you do that? Joy said something I thought was pretty good. He said, how can I not forgive when I need so much forgiveness myself? Here's what I've seen. I've seen that the people who don't forgive are the most arrogant, self-indulgent, self-focused people out there. They're the people who always have a higher impression of themselves than is warranted. And they don't really see the flaws, the fallacies, and the sins in their own lives. And accordingly, they see everybody else's. See, the things that they do that are horrible, sinful things are mistakes. The things that other people do that rub them wrong are major issues. But when we get to the point of understanding how flawed and sinful we are, and how broken we are, and how in desperate need of Jesus we are, it's hard not to forgive. For if you forgive men when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their sins, then your Father will not forgive you your sins. Boy, there are a lot of reasons I love Jesus, but this is one of them, his brevity. I mean, he just said it the way it is. It's one or the other. You either forgive other people, and you get forgiven, or you don't forgive other people, and you're not forgiven. So I think for Christians, this is the great mandate. This is something that I can't say quite this boldly in some corporate situations. Not from the front, but I say it to people when they come up to visit with me. This is key to everything. If you want forgiveness, get real busy about forgiving other people. It takes a lot of pain away. There is another strategy. I've been talking to you about this from the perspective of a fellow that ran an ad agency for 25 years. There's another perspective or another concept in advertising called the reach and frequency formula. Basically what it boils down to is you've got a certain demographic that you're trying to reach with this product's information. They're advertising. And you know that you've got to reach them enough times to get it in their heads. So you've got to reach enough people with enough frequency to communicate a message in a persuasive way. That's essentially what it is. So here's my question. If I have enough money in my advertising budget to reach 100% of the people one time per month, would it be better to spend my money and do that? Or would it be better to reach only 10% of those people 10 times per month? What do you think?
10 times 10.
10 times 10. That's exactly right. And the reason for that is when a person hears a commercial one time, they don't really hear it. It just kind of comes and goes, it's gone. You've got to have that repetition. You've got to step into those people's lives enough times to communicate with them. And here's a problem that a lot of Christians fall into. A lot of people in business do this too in their own lives. We tend to think about expansiveness, and we're always thinking numbers, and we're always trying to reach more people. So we don't really spend any time with the people we do reach. And consequently, those people fall away, or they don't get involved. As a leader, the key is to give up all hope of reaching everybody and simply try to reach the people that God puts into your path. What if I decided to do Christmas this year, in a few months from now, at the Waffle House? How many of y'all have Waffle Houses around? You know what these are? Okay, if you don't know what a Waffle House is, you got to get a life. These are the most unhealthy places in the world, and I love them. There's not too much I should be eating there at all. I can drink Diet Cokes there, that's for sure. But Waffle Houses are just a little, they're side of the road places. We have a lot of them around Nashville, so I see them a lot. But what if a couple of weeks before Christmas, I were to go down to the Waffle House near where we live, and I go into it, and there's a young girl comes up to my table. Her little badge says that her name is Vicki. Over here she has another badge with a picture of a couple of little toddlers on it. And she gets to the table. She's not wearing a wedding ring. You kind of know the story. But I notice that Vicki's just worn out. And she's not in a real good mood. And she's not giving me very good service. So what if instead of doing what I might be tempted to do, I look at Vicki and I say, hey, Vicki, how's your day been? And I'll let her dump a little bit. And she brings back my Coke or whatever. And I say, Vicki, I'm going to have a prayer in a minute here. Is there anything I can pray for you on? And maybe she'll say yes, and maybe she'll say no, but at least now she knows I care. And then what if a few days later I come back in and visit with her a little more? And then maybe about a week, 10 days before Christmas, I get with Bon and I say, hey, baby, why don't we go down and have dinner at the Waffle House? So we go down and Vicki's working. We sit at one of her tables and we talk, we visit with her. And then when she brings us the check, Bonnie reaches in her purse, or I'll reach my billfold after Vicki's walked away, and we slip 3 crisp $100 bills under the plate. And quietly we get up, walk outside, sit in the car in the darkness, and wait and watch Vicki pick up the plate. Christians, I would tell you that is Christmas. And what kind of influence do you think Bonnie or I will have with Vicki after the first of the year when we come back in? You see, this is what I'm talking about. You can't reach everybody. The trick is to reach who you can and to really do a deep dive into their lives. Now, to do this, we've got to learn how to do something else. It's a little hard for some of us. We've got to learn how to tell the story. Here's what I've learned over the years. I've learned that people that are my age don't do a great job as a whole telling stories. We just don't. Most of us grew up in the modern era. Modern era goes back about 300 or 400 years. Come on in, guys. Modern era goes back 300 or 400 years. It was the time when we were taught. It was the time of the Enlightenment. And we were taught that reason ruled all, and that the intellect was all that counted. And if you had the facts right, it didn't matter how you acted or thought or anything else. You were right. Well, those people that are under 40, maybe under 45, you guys are not modernist, okay? You are what are called postmodernist. You grew up in an era where you were kind of told, hey, your truth is your truth, my truth is my truth. Just leave us alone, don't, and if it feels good, do it, and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, I think that there is truth and error on both sides. I do believe, as a modernist would, that there is such a thing as absolute truth, absolutely. I believe it. But on the other side, I'm totally sympathetic to postmodernists who look at people like me and they say, well, then if you've got all the truth, why don't you act like it? Why are you so cold and hard about things? You see, here's the deal. It used to be that I would get in front of audiences and I'd say, hey, folks, and a lot of people said this, hey, folks, the longest 15-inch trip in the world is the one from the head to the heart. I don't believe that anymore. I do not believe that anymore. I'll tell you what I believe about that in a minute. But I will show you something here that might kind of go into this a little bit. Actually, I will go ahead and show you this and explain what I mean. I don't believe that anymore. Again, I'll pop this up a little bit out of order, but that's cool. This is what I call the motivation information matrix. It's that understanding that it doesn't go from head to heart. Now, maybe for people my age, it does. We get the data, and then we kind of fall in love with it. But the truth of the matter is, for younger people, if you want to reach them, you'd better pick that up and go the other way. What you're going to do is you're going to touch them in the heart, and then they're going to bring it northward to the head. And if you don't get that, you will not communicate with younger people. A minute ago, when I told you that story about Vicky, did anybody in here feel a little bit of a goosebump in you? A little bit of that? Yeah. See, I told the story, and then I built the case. And that's what we have to learn to do. We have to learn to be storytellers. And again, I know people say, oh, that's just not me. Well, tough. I mean, you learned to drive, didn't you? That wasn't you before you learned how to do it. You learn these things. This isn't rocket science. You simply figure this. And by the way, this has good precedent. You remember Jesus? Yeah? Y'all remember Jesus? You know, how did he teach? He told what? Stories. We call them parables. Yeah. Now, there were times when he would start with the head, he would quote Old Testament scripture occasionally, but generally he started with the story, and then he went into the data. And you see, this is what we Christians probably need to wake up to. We need to get more serious about that. It really changes the way we impact and affect other people. Now, to do anything in ministry or in life, I will say that you have got to have a system. And by the way, if you're kind of an old, warmed over hippie sitting in here, this may come hard. But so I bring this up sometimes when I'm talking to people about systems. I did this, I can't remember, I think this might have been at Ethan Allen. I remember one woman, I said, well, today we're going to be talking about systems. And she said, I am sick of systems. We've got systems coming out of systems around here. And I get that. I mean, there's sometimes too many systems. But the truth of the matter is, if you're going to accomplish anything worthwhile, you have to have a system, a pre-planned approach on how you're going to do it. I like what Nelson Searcy has said about it, and I think this is enough said here. You need a system in order to avoid wasted motion. Now, what is a system? Simply put, a system is anything that saves you stress, time, energy, and/or money. See, I don't want any more stress. I never have as much time as I need. I can always use more energy. And I can always use more money. So anything that's going to save and help in that way is a good thing. And that's what a system does. And by the way, Jesus was a systematized guy. You remember how he selected a finite number of close followers, the 12 apostles. You remember when he fed the thousands, he sat them down on the hillside in groups of, what was it, 50? 1,500, whatever. You know, he had a system. He had an approach to things. And again, a lot of people that push back on this, and again, I don't mean to be harsh here, but I'm just talking about just between us girls this morning, okay? I'm trying to communicate some important things. A lot of times, we don't have systems because we're lazy. And we don't want to go to the initial effort that it takes to build a system. But with systems, things get done better, and here's the cool thing. They're more scalable. that means that you're more able to pass it on to the people that are following after you. See, if you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants, and by the way, I do this all the time. But if you fly by the seat of your pants on everything, and then you're trying to scale, and you're trying to bring other people into that loop so that they can do the same thing and you can replicate the energy, then you've really got a bad situation. You either have to just hope that they can figure it out, or you have to go back and in a remedial way do what you should have done before you ever started. Number 17. You're going to get things right. Christians, we as God's kids have got to stop presupposing. Now, I'm just going to be blunt here. Folks in churches of Christ, as well as some other very traditional denominations, tend to be the worst at presupposing. We're the ones who tend to judge people based on outside appearances way more than we should. And Christians, I will tell you, we do not need as Christians to do anything that brings a negative judgment on Jesus. This means that as a God follower, we do not need to be the people with the most tattoos and the most stuff stuck in our faces. And you know, we don't want to walk outside and rust, okay? We don't need to be those kind of people. Because even if you're a great Christian at heart, you don't look it from the outside. So I'm not suggesting we do these things, but I am suggesting that as God's kids, we look at other people with a very charitable eye. And again, I'm preaching to the choir right now, okay? This is a big struggle for me. But what we've got to do is we've got to quit presupposing how people think are going to respond to that. Let me share with you a little riddle here. Father and son, they're both in the car driving together. It's a muscle car. They're driving down the road. They're going way too fast. The car hits the side. It flips over 3 times. The father is killed in the wreck. The son is badly injured. Ambulance arrives, picks the son up, rushes him to the hospital. They take him right into surgery. 2 minutes later, the surgeon comes running out saying, I can't operate on him. He's my son. What's that? Some of you are stopping, but many of you aren't. What?
The surgeon is the mother.
Yeah, his mom is a surgeon. But if we presuppose and we assume that dad's got to be the surgeon, then we've got a problem here. Let me show you something. Maybe this will speak to you.
This is $100 here.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, just keep it. It's your money now.
Oh, that's.
Just want you know.
Oh, really? Are you sure?
Yeah, go ahead, it's yours.
I'm starting to tear
No,
up.
it's okay.
That's like incredible.
It's okay, it's alright.
Can I?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
I've never had this in my life.
Nice meeting you. I hope you can, have a good use of that money.
It will be, sir.
Okay, great. See ya. Just keep filming. Just make sure he doesn't see you. What do you get? Alright, let's go across the street. Let's go. Come follow me. I want to talk to you.
Hey, what are you doing here?
Hey, actually, come here. I need to talk to you. I was following you the entire time.
Oh, yeah?
After I give you the money, there's a camera. My cameraman's right there. You see the camera?
Oh, yeah.
Do you even know that? Like,
No.
I feel like I owe you apologies because you went to a liquor store, right? Earlier.
Oh, you thought I was gonna get all smacked up drunk, huh?
I thought you were gonna buy like alcohol or something.
Yeah, but there's things money can't buy, and money, I get a happiness out of what I'm doing. No.
Here.
I'm fine.
No, you just touched my heart. You know, this is another. This is not $100.
No, this is, but,
I want you. I want you to keep it.
I'm stunned.
I'm stunned. I'm stunned
I
by
don't know what to say, usually I'm pretty talkative.
how you end up to like where you are right now.
Basically, I was living with my parents, and my stepdad had cancer, and they were getting hospice, but it didn't cover, the insurance only pays so much. I quit working because I had to be available, and so he passed away, and, then 2 weeks later, my mother passed away from kidney failure. Building they're in is being sold, the condo, and I all of a sudden found myself homeless. That's been like 4 months now. There's a lot of people that are just victim of circumstance, and they didn't go homeless because they're late, you know what I mean?
Lazy or like
No,
drug addiction.
It could be a divorce, and one thing leads to another. The man sells his boat, his home, everything, and all of a sudden he finds out he's got no money. And he's, you know, there's a lot of good people that are homeless. You're doing good, you somehow be on the scene and you bump into good people. That's all there is to it. You're on a different path somehow in life. I can't explain it. Quit saying it.
What do you think? Anybody see another side of things after that? Stop presupposing. Extend a little charity. Assume good. A lot of things are self-fulfilling prophecies, by the way. We know that, right? If we assume something, in many cases, and treat people that way, in many cases, that's where they're going to be. I'm not saying it always works. You're going to be disappointed sometimes. But that rare disappointment is a lot easier to take than to have a life of a grinding lifestyle where you see the worst in people all the time. Here's the 18th concept. We need to understand that predictable is forgettable. Surprise people. Be the person that is remembered, not in a notorious way, but in a good way, in a way for something. Because that way you're building a brand, so the next time you come into the contact with that person's life cycle, they will already have a favorable impression, and they'll be that much more ready to listen to or accept what you want to share with them. It's very important to do this. I do a lot of surprising things. Bonnie walked in the bathroom, that's what she saw at our house. Yeah, those are towels, by the way. One of the things that Bonnie and I do a couple, 3 times a year, we take cruises. Go, we're working on cruises. So it's a work trip for us, but I speak on a few cruise lines, on different topics, and about 2 or 3 times a year, we'll take a working cruise like that. Well, one of the things that I've learned over the years is that the first thing I need to do when I get on ship is to get to know the cruise director. Now, this cruise director's got like 2,000 or 3,000 people to keep up with, a staff of about 150 people. They're running from every point to every point, but by contract, I have to make contact the first day of the cruise. And he doesn't really, or she doesn't really want to have to deal with me. So what I've learned is this. I always show up with a box of Nashville-made Goo Goo clusters. Does anybody know what Goo Goo clusters are? Yeah, that's Nashville's health food. These are the best candies in the world. But anyways, I'll usually, and not always, but I usually come on with a couple of boxes, give them to the cruise director and the deputy cruise director. And more often than not, when I walk in the office the first time, this is the way they see me. I come walking in with a red nose on. And here's the thing. They know this guy's the biggest idiot in the world, or they know that he's going to be really interesting to have on. And so we have fun, and then I say, have you ever seen a runny nose? But who wants a nose? Anybody want a nose? Anybody want a nose? There you go, bro. Oh, over your head, I'm sorry. Have a nose. A nose. Anyways, when you do things that are a little bit off balance, people seem to like it. They seem to remember it better. Let me share something with you that I've taught a lot of salespeople over the years. It's the business cards on the elevator idea. And this is not necessarily the exact thing that you could do, but you could do something similar maybe with your church business card. It's kind of fun to do these kind of things. You know how people tick, right? When they walk on an elevator in the morning, they're getting ready to go to work, and they get on that elevator, what do they do as quick as they get on? Yeah, they turn around to the front of the elevator, right? Well, what I would suggest is this. Let them do that. Let them all get on, and then you get on last. But when the doors close, don't turn around. Smile real big and say, you know the reason I called you all here today? I just wanted you to know that we're going to have a free seminar at the church, a no debt, no sweat seminar. We want to invite everybody to come. This is something really special. It's not going to cost you any money. Y'all have a good day. The door opens, you let them out. Everybody's chuckling. You made a great impression.
Wow.
See, little things like that. Look for ways to surprise other people because it's a good way to do it. One of the things I do, and I've done all my life, is what I call Krispy Kreme diplomacy. This is another health food that we have available to us. And I don't know how many boxes of Krispy Kreme donuts I have bought, stacked in the backseat of my car, and driven around and handed out to people that I wanted to have good contact with. I mean, what does it cost? $10 or something? But that's a small price to pay. To bless somebody, give something they really enjoy, and to leave literally and metaphorically a good taste in their mouth. It's just something, little things like that. Number 19. You need to understand, if you're going to deal with people, the emotional set point concept. And here's what it boils down to. We all have set points of some sort. I mean, you've heard about some of them. They talk about a happiness set point. A lot of psychologists believe that certain people or that all people are born with different levels of happiness. And that some people are going to tend to just be happy, 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 and other people are going to tend to be bummed. And most of us fall somewhere in between those two extremes. Well, I don't know if I buy all of that, but yeah, there's that. There's a monetary set point. One of the things that we've learned doing No Debt, No Sweat seminars is that people perceive money very, very differently. How much they need, how much they're going to use, how much they need to prepare for retirement, all of that. And there is a weight set point. A lot of people, and I think there's some truth in this, believe that people are kind of born with a body mass index setting that they're going to kind of gravitate towards. And they can diet and lose weight, but they're going to have a harder time keeping it off than they would if this wasn't here. By the way, let me show you something. Here's a great way to weigh yourself if you want to get really great results. But I digress. Let me share with you another set point. This is your emotional set point. The emotional set point is the way you perceive things between your ears. And here's the key, and this is what I want to communicate. Be cautious not to ever lay your emotional set point onto another human being. This one right here, well, I'll get to her in a minute. I just said that, so let me skip over that. This one right here, this is Carolyn Strauss. Carolyn is a trainer for Nordstrom's department stores. Really bright woman. And one of the things she does is what she calls the $325 coat lesson. When she's training new employees, she'll have them up in a training room about like this one. And she will frequently go downstairs to the store and she'll go to the rack where the women's clothes are and she'll pick up a coat that costs around $325. Then in her presentation, as she opens it up, she will stand up there and hold the coat up and say, ladies and gentlemen, this is a coat from downstairs. The price on it is $325. How many of you in here think that's expensive? And on average, she says about 50% of the people will raise their hands. And then she says, how many of you in here think that that is not expensive? And on average, she says the other 50% will raise their hands. And with that, she makes the point that you can never lay your emotional set point. And as salespeople, you can't lay your emotional set point onto the customers. That's a big mistake. If you come in a glib way thinking $325 is nothing and you're talking to somebody who can barely pay $75 for a coat, that's a lot of money and you're being disrespectful to that person. On the other hand, if you come in and you're making whatever you're making downstairs, $8 and $9 an hour on the floor, and to you, $325 is a bucket load of money. You've got people coming in from the better areas of town who will pay that much for a pair of socks. They're not thinking that that's a lot, And a lot of sales are lost because the salesperson has an emotional set point of their own that they presume is everybody else's. A lot of Christians are ineffective in our ministry because we presume that our emotional set point is the same as the people that we're talking with. And it rarely is. The trick is very simple. The trick is to learn how to do one thing over everything else. And that is to get into the shoes of the other person. We got to do that. We got to be able to step into the other person's shoes in a way that that will really, effectively communicate with them. Number 20, one of the things, and this is another thing that's very, very hard for those of us that are over 40 or 45, we've got to learn how to embrace change. Now, again, we could sit here through the rest of the day and talk about all the changes that are coming, the robotic changes that we're seeing, the AI changes that many people are very, very concerned with these days, the cloning of humans that the Chinese now are getting closer to, all kinds of changes. The worldliness, the sinfulness of this world, it's overwhelming. But I'm suggesting that change in and of itself is not wrong. It's not bad, but it can be very foreboding and it can put people off. And those of us that kind of like to have a predictable lifestyle and like to stay in our comfort zone and are not very spontaneous people, change is a real rattle to us. It bothers us. Fact is, your brain hates change. That's just the fact. We're wired that way. Some people hate it more than other people, but the key is to learn to deal with it. Theo Andros is a fellow that had a job. I was in an audience 2 or 3 years ago. Bonnie and I were both there. His job was to introduce Dan Rather. Theo Andros, about 5 minutes before he was to step up in front of 2,000 people to introduce Rather, he got a note that Dan Rather had been taken sick and had been rushed to the emergency room. Now here he is with that note in his hand, 2,000 people out here expecting to hear from Dan Rather. Now here's my question. If you had been Theo Andros, what would you have done? Would you have done what he did? He told Dan's story better than Dan could tell himself. He did it in an inspiring way. Why did he do this? It's because he had done his homework. And he had really, really prepared. And he had also, as we talked about earlier, he had made it a point to get in and figure out what could happen and be prepared for that to happen. And number 2, he had another speaker stand up and speak about change. Now, this happened to be an audience filled with professional speakers, so that was not as big a reach as it might have been otherwise. But it turned out to be a resoundingly great and successful morning. As a matter of fact, there wasn't just one, but there were 2 standing ovations at the end of that. And it all happened because that man, Theo Andros, did the right things. His secret was simply come in there prepared. He knew what to do if things went wrong. And this gets back to what we were talking about in our first session. You need to have a plan for what's going to happen if things don't go right. This is what I was talking about making our decisions backstage, behind the curtains. We make our decisions. We think through what could go wrong, so we're prepared. And number 2, he wasn't afraid of change. As a matter of fact, he embraced it. And because of that, 2,000 people, I would argue, probably heard a far better speech than they would have from Dan Rather. I'm not a big Dan Rather fan, but I mean, nonetheless. So the facts are these. Change, folks, is inevitable. Whether you like it or not, it's coming. And number 2, change is usually unpredictable. So our trick is to get comfortable with change. Don't let it rattle you. When things don't go the way you were thinking they were going to go, your computer gets bogged down, or somebody's, not on time for something. And again, I'm the world's worst at this. I am so disappointed in my own wife's husband on a lot of the things I'm talking to you about this morning. It is embarrassing. But I'm telling you that what I'm saying, I know is correct. If we can get to the point where we kind of enjoy change, it becomes something that we kind of look forward to. It becomes sort of a test that we like to take because it gets our juices going. Then it's amazing how we'll deal with it. Porter Stark taught me a lesson on this same thing about change. Porter Stark is a friend of mine. He was a business advisor some years ago. At one point, I was thinking about selling a company, and I was having a lot of trouble making my mind up and doing it. And finally, one day, I can still remember this. Porter sat down with me. He said, "Steve, you need to get in some new dirt." So what are you talking about? He said, simply put, Steve, every plant that's going to thrive and grow needs to be repotted on occasion. You don't need to keep on doing the same old, same old. You need to get into a bigger pot. You need to have more opportunities. And again, this scares some people. And I pity people like that. But you don't have to be like that. You can come to the point where you think, wow, if I lose my job, think about the opportunities out here. Wow, if this happens, think about what could come from it. And if you will look back in your life, there were so many things that came down the pike that were changes that you were scared to death about. And you expended incredible emotional energy struggling with. But you look back on them now and say, hey, that worked out pretty good. What we need to have is the forward view instead of that rear view that we work from so much of the time. If there is a pit in your stomach, now I should say if there is not a pit in your stomach, the fact is you are not changing. And if you're not changing, you're not growing. Simple math. Enjoy change. And again, the message doesn't change, okay? The method does change. Day in, day out, all the time. Number 21 is what I call the fear factor. Here's the question. What are you afraid of? See, the number one reason for failure is fear. This is why most endeavors that are started fail. Because somebody gets afraid of something. We get afraid, and it doesn't proceed. So here's the question. What are you afraid of right this minute? What are you struggling with? What scares you? You see, there are a lot of phobias out there. As a matter of fact, the dictionary of medical annals, I should say, lists over 400 legitimate phobias. Anybody ever heard of aviophobia? That's the scare of flying. How about this one? Anybody ever heard of glossophobia? That's the fear of doing what I'm doing right now, getting up and speaking. By the way, studies show that 70% of people are more afraid of getting up in front of an audience and speaking than they are of dying. And as Jerry Seinfeld pointed out, that means that at the average funeral, the guy doing the eulogy would rather be the guy in the box. How about this one? Chlorophyll. That's the fear of planets. Anybody know what this is? Blinophobia? It's the fear of slime. How about this one? Androphobia. Yeah, that's the fear of men, sometimes with really good reason. How about this one right here? Ablutophobia. Does anybody know what that is? That is the fear of taking a bath. So what are we afraid of? What is it that scares us? There are three reasons that people become fearful. And when you see what these three things are, you'll be more able to. Number one, psychologists call the first one negative imagination. This is when we think about something before it happens, and we think about it in its very worst context. This is when we think about all the bad stuff that could happen, and we blow it way out of proportion. The truth is, and we all know this by experience, 98% of the time it's never as bad as we thought. And the other 2% of the time it's not a killer. So why do we waste all that energy? The second reason people are fearful is they really look at it, they realize they're not as afraid of the activity, it's more the fear of the fear. There was a study done on parachutes. What they did is they put pulse monitors on them. And the point was they wanted to see how high their pulse rate would get doing a parachuting jump. Well, these guys, they put them on they mount these things on these guys. And their heart rate actually began to go up when they stepped onto the airplane. And as the airplane ascended, it kept going up. And as the airplane opened the door for the guys to start to jump out, it went right off the chart. But do you know what happened when they stepped out of the door of that airplane? It went down. You see, it's the fear of the fear. And a lot of times, if we can understand that, it's not the activity at all, it's bothering us. So that brings me to the third thing. Here's how we can start the process and maybe step into our fears. I like what Darren Hardy at Success says. He says, just simply do the first 20 seconds. In other words, put a blind on, emotionally close your ears, and just step into it for the first 20 seconds. And amazingly, many cases, after we got the ball rolling, we just keep it going, and it's perfectly fine. It's that stepping off the ledge thing. I can remember the first time that I ever went bungee jumping. Oh, boy, that was scary. I stood there on the ground. I looked way up in that tower, and I thought, well, that's high, but it's not that bad. I'm telling you, when you get up there, you think you're on the top of the Empire State Building. It is huge. And I'm looking at this little postage stamp down there. This is my car, and I'm thinking, whoa. And I remember they told me how to do this, and I was supposed to turn around and fall back. He said, when I count 3, fall back. So I turned my arms, and I had my back to the thing. 1, 2, 3. He said, you didn't fall. I said, I know. I'm telling my legs to, but they're not working. And finally, though, I let myself go, and it was beautiful. I love the experience. But you see, we get afraid of things, and the trick is just to simply step into them and do them. And so you don't end your life thinking, wow, look at all the things other people did. I never did. Anecdote for performance anxiety, I like this, is to become service focused. See, this is the key, by the way, for depression. If you want to overcome a lot of depression, get out of yourself. In other words, go to the hospital and visit somebody you don't even know. Start doing things for other people. There's a young man that I mentor. He's a great guy. I love him to death. But he has OCD coming out of his eyeballs. And he gets into depressions and all that. And I've told him over and over again, Michael, what you need to do is get out of yourself. You just need to just simply go to the hospital and visit people. You know, and I believe that that's the case because I've struggled with depression. And I'm telling you, I learned, and fortunately I haven't had any problems for years, but I have learned that the best thing for me to do is just get up and do something, not for me, but for somebody else. Terry Paulson says, we are here to serve and not to shine. And that's a hard thing to get our arms around. You know, we speak that a lot, but do we really believe that we're here to be servants and we're not here for our own glory? If the glory comes, that's great. But if it doesn't, that's great. We're serving God. Jesus said it best. Just treat other folks the way you want to get treated. I like that. Okay, number 22, crabs. The crabs hate succeeders. Did you know that? Did you know that crabs hate other crabs that are successful? They do. They really and truly do. When they drop one of these crab traps down to the bottom of the sea, and the crabs see the bait in there, they're stupid. So they go walking across, and they go right in that hole. You notice I'm walking sideways like a crab does. That was a little crab walk there. Anyways, they go right into that hole. And after one goes in, the others come in, and finally one of the crabs that's in there that has more than an IQ that starts with a decimal point, wakes up and says, duh, this thing isn't going to end very well. So he looks around and he finds the escape hatch, right? And he starts to crawl out. Now you would think that all those other morons in the crusted shells down there would wake up and follow him out, right? But they don't. What they do is they start clawing him back in. And folks, that's the way it works. People will not want you to succeed at anything because your success stands in the face of their failure, their choice to fail in many cases. The fact is this, and I've learned this the hard way. Nobody shoots at anybody who's in front of them, or I should say anybody who's behind them. Nobody ever does that. What people do is they shoot at the people in front of them. So if people are shooting at you, God bless you, you're doing something. And just learn to live with it. Whether you love him or hate him, Donald Trump is a paragon of this. I mean, he gets a focus on something, and he's going to go do it, no matter what kind of resistance he gets. And that is at least one thing I do admire about that man. And I want to be that kind of person. I want to be the person who, when I know what I need to do, I'm simply going to do it. And I'm not going to let the pushes and the pressures from different sides affect me. And the reason, as I just said, the reason that people do this is because it disrupts their excuses for failure. Number 23, we're right on the home stretch right now, is to understand that perception and reality. This concept is very important. Here are the facts. A person's perception is their reality. Now listen carefully to what I'm saying. A person's perception is their reality. But we have to also understand that perception, though, is not reality. And great leaders are the few people in this world who really can distinguish and get this, and understand this. You've got to treat other people who have perceptions that you may know are totally wrong. You've got to treat them with respect because they believe that. But you've got to understand that there's got to be a pathway to lead them along to see that they're, just because they perceive something, does not necessarily mean that it's right. Let me show you what I'm Now, you perceived something there, right? That perception seems like reality. What's this? perception is not reality, but sometimes convincing other people means that we have to become very, very logical, very, very calm, non-emotional as we help them along in that process. Okay, folks, we're ending this thing up. Let me just end it by saying this. If you're going to get into anything, you better expect massive resistance. Jesus Christ is a stalwart on this one, right? Anytime you're doing anything that's worthwhile, somebody's going to be pushing back. Bonnie and I, as I mentioned a while ago, do an awful lot of airplane flying. And here's what I've noticed. I've noticed that no airplane ever taxis up to the runway and turns away from the wind and hopes that a great tailwind will get it off the ground. Doesn't work that way. Instead, they turn straight into the wind, and they push into that massive resistance with those tons and tons and tons of steel and humans and everything else. And somehow, that resistance is exactly what makes that airplane become airborne. But it's hard. It takes lots of torque, takes lots of pull, takes lots of energy to make that happen. You're going to have massive resistance anytime you stand up, especially if you're doing something that the crowd doesn't agree with. So get used to it, get ready for it, and just learn to enjoy it. 2 facts, a question and a challenge, we're done. Fact number 1, everybody in this room is getting older and older with every day that passes. Fact number 2, if you live long enough, one day you will be an old person. Everybody knows what old age is, right? And that's when everything either drags, lags, sags, or bags, right? Somebody comes up to you and they say, hey, what kind of underwear do you wear, boxers or briefs? And you have to say, depends. Yeah, old age is coming. So here is the question. What are you going to do with your old age and your experience? Are you going to share it with others, or are you going to pass it? Are you going to share it with others, or are you going to hold it to yourself? Are you going to be a river, or are you going to be a reservoir? You see, rivers receive the blessings from upstream. They enjoy the blessings, but they pass them on downstream to others. Reservoirs receive the blessings from upstream, but then they capture that water, and it becomes cold, dead, stagnant, and of no good to anybody. So, here's the challenge. I want to challenge every one of you in here as you go home to just make a determined decision that you're going to begin to cup the bee. Little girl, 4 years old, riding in a car Saturday morning with her daddy. She's highly allergic to bee stings, but the windows are down anyways. They stop at a traffic light, and a bee flies inside the car. It starts to circle the windshield. The little girl panics. She says, Daddy, there's a bee up there. And she ducks her head, but without even thinking about it, her daddy takes his big hand, he cups the bee, and he waits. The bee stings, pulls his hand back. The little girl looks up, and about that time the bee starts to fly again. The little girl says, Daddy, that bee's loose again. And with that, her daddy looks at her and says, Sweetie, it's okay, it's okay. Daddy's got the stinger. Every one of us in this room, no matter what your age, you've got some stingers in your hands. You all back there, you don't have too many yet, okay? Some of us in here have a whole bunch. The question is, what are we going to do with these stingers? Are we going to just let them sit there and fester and be of no good to anybody? Or are we going to use the things that we're learning to share with and to help the people that are coming behind? I believe that that is our mandate and that is our calling. Dear God, I thank you so much for our time together. I pray that you will anoint all of these people in your holiness. Father, let us determine to lead and shine a bright light on the pathway for others to follow. It's in Jesus that we pray and praise you. Amen. Before we break huddle, thank you very much. Before we break huddle, let me just say, and some of you already heard this, we have, I got one of these left. But this is a brand new book on leadership called Fast Forward Leadership. This is an excellent book. I mean, I know I'm bragging, but it is really a good book. And it's normally, and by the way, if you're in sales, I've got this one left right here called Get the Green. But these books are $17 books. If you would like, well, we've got some left. If you would like to have one of these, you can get either book you want for $7. Okay. Or you can get both books, or 2 books, any combination you want, for $11. So they're right back there. Bonnie can help you with that, and if you need to use a credit card, we can fix that if you need to. But anyways, that's that. And also, last thing I'm going to say is, if I've not been to your church to do a No Debt, No Sweat seminar, has anybody received one of these in the mail recently at your church? You're supposed to have. But anyways, this is a little postcard back here. Take one of these with you, or ask me while we're here if you want. The No Debt, No Sweat seminar is something that a lot of churches have used. And if you're interested in learning more about the Leadership Summit that we do at churches, there are some sheets back here that explain that you're welcome to grab. God bless you guys. Have a safe trip home.
Were you recently in Tyler, Texas? No, like last year?
Probably. I don't remember right off. Hey there. Where is your... Anna, where are you from?